Welcome to the mid-year book freakout tag, which those of you in the know will know that this was the first video that I ever posted on my booktube channel. We're talking 6 years on booktube now. I am a booktube pensioner, which is wild because, you know, I still feel like I'm pretty new to booktube. I still feel like a booktube newbie, but I am in fact a booktube granny. This is my 7th time doing this tag. My original date, like the official date that I posted my first video on YouTube was the 13th of July. Am I posting this on the 13th of July this year? I don't know. That is a question that only scheduling Becca can answer, and I am not her. But the mid-year book freakout tag is an opportunity to check in halfway through the year and talk about the last 6 months of reading. So like best book, most disappointing book, looking forward to like what you're going to be reading in the next 6 months of the year. So there are 13 questions in total. I'm not going to be tagging anyone, but I will put all of the questions down in my description box if you guys would like to participate. So getting into question 1, what is the best book that you have read in 2023 so far? Now, I've actually just posted a video that is my 6 best books of the year so far, and I will link that for you guys because in that video I do talk about the books that are my answer for the first 2 questions of this tag, and because of that I'm gonna try and be brief in this video. But my best book of the year so far is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. As you will see throughout the course of this video, I have discovered Ali Hazelwood this year and I am liking what I'm reading. So Ali Hazelwood writes contemporary romances that all feature characters that work in STEM. So this one in particular is about a girl who is a PhD student who ends up fake dating the professor at college that everybody hates so that her friend feels comfortable dating her ex. There is a particular formula in romance that I really like, and it is a tall, grumpy guy that everybody hates but treats the main character really well, paired with a very highly strung main character that cannot see like 2 feet in front of her face and is completely oblivious to the world around her. It's the same formula as in The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and Ali Hazelwood delivers it beautifully again and again. So I think this is still my favorite book of the year so far, but we'll see what happens when the best books of 2023 roll in, because I feel like, you know, hindsight is 2020, so it may all change, but right now my gut feeling is The Love Hypothesis. The second question is, what is the best sequel you've read so far in 2023? And for that one I'm going with another book that made it onto my best books of 2023 list, which is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. This is book 4 in one of my favorite series of all time. It's following a guy called Darrow who is a red in a color cast system where reds are right at the bottom and golds are right at the top. So Darrow thinks that his people and all of his people think that they are mining helium-3 so that people can terraform the galaxy and humans can then escape the dying planet Earth. However, after Darrow's wife makes herself a martyr to spur Darrow into action, he goes to the surface of Mars and he realizes that the planets have been terraformed for a very long time and his people are being kept in ignorance and slavery. So he joins the rebellion with the goal of infiltrating the golds and then tearing them apart from the inside. My favorite thing about this series is the drama and the angst. It's the betrayals, the backstabbing, the shocking plot twists, the sense of brotherhood that some of the characters have until they want to fuck each other over. I'm truly in it for the level of drama, and also the way that Darrow inspires such loyalty that even I would follow this man into battle. He also has a pretty cool character arc, going from this like young-ish guy at like 16, 17, full of like ideas and like righteous anger, to where he is at the start of the second story arc, which is this, where he's like 33, 34, battle-hardened, a little bit jaded, and has lost his sense of purpose a little bit. You can say I'm a big fan, and I'm very excited to be continuing on with the rest of the books in this series that are currently published a little bit later this year. Question number 3 is, what is a new release that you haven't read yet? So there's a few that I haven't read yet, but this one in particular I haven't read because I'm going to be ordering the Fairy Loot edition, so I'm going to have to wait a while for it to arrive. But it's one of my anticipated releases for this year. I think it was released in potentially early June or late May, and that is The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. This is the the sequel to Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is a book that I read last year and I really enjoyed. It is about a coven of witches that grew up in Yorkshire. They were a coven when they were young, and there was a war with the warlocks that happened, I would say, like in their late teens to mid 20s, and that has kind of sent them all in their separate ways. So one of them is now the leader of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is the governing body of witches. We have one who is a vet and practices her witchcraft at home, one that's kind of set magic aside and set up a family, and one who has moved to London and set up her own coven because she finds Her Majesty's Royal Coven to be very exclusionary. So the kind of plot of this is that a prophecy has been uncovered that the sullied child is going to bring about the end of days, and one of them thinks that they've found the sullied child and hands the child into another's care to try and bring the child out of their shell and avert this prophecy by stopping them from becoming the person that heralds the end of days. And obviously it's not that clear cut, it's not that simple. So I really loved Her Majesty's Royal Coven. I was really into the plot. I loved what it had to say in terms of it goes into a lot of discussion on topics like racism and transphobia, but also I loved the discussion of sisterhood, but also what it means when the people you have grown up with, that you care about and love because you grew up with them, grow onto a very different path to the one you're on. Like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you separate that? How do you separate the person that you loved from the person that they've become? And that whole like complex, like messy relationship drama that you tend to, I guess, have in families, but also like childhood friendship groups where you're all in a very different place than you were, but like the shared love that you had when you were younger is kind of what is like holding you together. So yeah, I'm very excited for the Shadow Cabinet. I was tempted to get myself a copy in Waterstones, but in my heart of hearts I know that I'm actually not going to get to it anytime soon, so I might as well just wait for the Fairy Loot one. Question number 4 is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? I can 100% without a shadow of a doubt say that that is Lightbringer by Pierce Brown, which is the 6th book in the Red Rising series. I have intentionally saved this second story arc. Like, after I read the Red Rising trilogy, I stopped after book 3, knowing that I wanted to read the second story arc closer to the release of book 6. So hopefully I'll have Dark Age out of the way in time for Lightbringer. I'm not sure exactly when it's out. I think it's like the 25th of July or something like that. Question number 5 is, what is your biggest disappointment of the year so far? This is not my worst book of the year, but it is the one that disappointed me the most, and that is Her Soul for Revenge by Harley LaRue. So this one is the sequel to Her Soul to Take, which was one of my favorite books of 2022, and that one is following a young girl called Ray who is moving back to the town that her father grew up in, and she has a paranormal investigations channel on YouTube, and she's a little bit tired of people like clickbaiting by doing like fake possessions and that kind of thing. But one day she's feeling kind of down, and so she decides to just like lean into the gimmick, and she finds a grimoire that has a demon summoning ritual in it. So she performs the ritual thinking she's just going to put on a show for her YouTube channel, and it turns out that she actually summons a demon called Leon. Now Leon has recently been in service to a family that are kind of like almost the founding family of the town. They're very influential in this small town, and they have been sacrificing people to the god that slumbers under the town with the intention of rising it. So Ray and Leon team up when Leon finds out that his grimoire is no longer in Ray's possession to stop the Hadley family from raising the god, and also hopefully get Leon's grimoire back so he can no longer be summoned to murder people against his will. So this one is following one of Leon's friends called Zane, and also a girl who was supposed to be sacrificed by the Hadleys, but she escaped and she's been on the run for most of her life, and she has returned to the town, teamed up with Zane, and she is trying to get her revenge. So I really loved book 1 because it was super atmospheric. Harley LaRue does write a lot of like BDSM smut, so I would recommend going on the Goodreads page for all of Harley LaRue's books and looking up the kink list if it's something, if these books are something that you think you might be interested in. But I really liked the smut in the first book. I loved the atmosphere. The relationship was a little bit of a slow burn, and this one, while I still kind of enjoyed the plot, the smut had kinks that I just wasn't into. There was a lot of like pain and knife play and like bloodletting, and it was also not a slow burn. Like the smut started a lot earlier in this book, and I personally prefer a slow burn. So I'm still really excited for the 3rd book in this series, but just the first book I I gave 5 stars and I was expecting a similar rating for this, and I think I actually gave it a 2. So I'm hopeful about book 3, but it was just the romantic elements in this installment in particular just weren't to my personal taste and really weren't a hit with me. Question number 6 is, what is your biggest surprise of the year? And for me, I think it is House of Beaten Wings by Olivia Wildenstein. This is a fantasy romance following a girl who is half fae, and this is a world where like the fae are at the top of the food chain, the humans are right at the bottom, and the half fae are kind of in the middle, but they're very much like looked down upon by the fae. So our main character is in a bit of a love triangle because she's kind of into the local like fisherman slash merchant, but she's also in love with her best friend who happens to be the prince. Now there is a lot going on in this book, and the first 40%, like, it takes a while for it all to come together because there's some conveniences at the beginning to tie this all together. Like, the half fae are very much looked down upon, but our main character managed to go to school with the prince, and that's how they're best friends, even though she's very much shunned from normal society, but because her grandparents, who her grandfather's like disowned her, but because he's like the king's general, she could go to this school even though she's been disowned. It's that kind of thing. But the prince has been gone for 4 years, and he comes back and tries to like reignite a thing with our main character. However, he's the prince and she's half fae, so they can never be together. And one day when there's this big party going on that she hasn't been invited to, she goes with her friends to the human lands, or like the human area of the city, where she meets an oracle that tells her if she finds 5, I think it's steel or iron crows, she will become the queen of all of the lands, which she takes to mean that she will marry the prince. And so she goes along and she sets off on this journey even though she has no idea what it is. We do have a couple of other races in here. There's a race of sorceresses which are called, I think, shabans, and there's also the crow people. This city is very like Venetian, like the main fae area, and we also have some Irish influences in this series as well. I don't want to say that they're accurate or anything, or it's a good representation. It's just very obvious that like that kind of like architecture, culture, and like law has been referenced in this book. And I just picked this up because Olivia Wildenstein is going to be at Rare this year. That's literally all I knew. I didn't know, with it being just like a random KU book that I picked up, I literally expected nothing of it, and I ended up really liking this series. I pretty much went straight into book 2 and I really enjoyed that one as well. And I think that if book 3 isn't out already, I'm sure the release date was June, then it is going to be out very soon. And I actually, knowing that now, I kind of want to pick it up immediately. But yeah, it's just one that it ended up growing on me, and the more that I read it, the more that I enjoyed it. I can't even say that I'm especially into the romantic element of this. It was just a really good time, and I just kept turning pages and getting more and more into the story. It's definitely flawed, it's definitely not perfect, but I really enjoyed it a lot. Olivia Wildenstein does have a more popular series than this that I believe is about a fallen angel, which are like an angel that's trying to gain the feathers required to become a guardian angel. So starts helping out this person who's like, I think like a mafia boss or something like that, which I'm really interested in. But this was definitely a very good introduction to Olivia Wildenstein, and I will be reading more. Question number 7 is, who is your newest favorite author? And for that one, I'm gonna have to go with Ali Hazelwood, I feel, because I have read 3 Ali Hazelwood books this year. She's the only author where I'm consistently giving her books 5 stars, and I've just discovered her this year. But this is going to lead into question 8 perfectly, which is like, who is your newest fictional crush? And I thought about taking this one out because it's just not like, I just don't really have fictional crushes all that often anymore. But Levi, I think Levi is my favorite Ali Hazelwood love interest. This one in particular is about a girl who is I think she's a biologist, a neurologist. She specializes in brain stuff, and she is given the lead on a project that NASA are doing to create helmets for astronauts, and she ends up paired with an engineer who she went to college with, who has always hated her, and she has no idea why. She's starting to really worry that she won't be able to contribute or won't be allowed to actually collaborate on this project because of sexism in science, and also because this guy apparently hates her for no reason. I think in terms of Ali Hazelwood books, The Love Hypothesis is my favorite because Olive's my favorite main character, but I think in terms of love interests, I think it might be Levi. Levi does a really good declaration of love. I love a declaration of love. I feel like Adam didn't deliver on that in the love hypothesis, but Levi really came through. Number 9 is your newest favorite character, and I'm gonna go with Matt Cawthon from The Wheel of Time, but specifically The Dragon Reborn, because I actually didn't care about him at all until this book, when I didn't like him to start off with, and he grew on me throughout. So Wheel of Time, okay, do we know what Wheel of Time is about? I feel like it's a hard one because it's so well known, but also I don't feel like the plot is discussed a lot when we talk about Wheel of Time being like one of the greatest fantasy series of all time. But it is a very classic struggle between light and dark in every age, in every generation, every turning of the wheel. The same events happen over and over again, and every age features the Dragon Reborn, which is a character that is reincarnated in every age to be a pawn of light or dark, and with each age the world turns more towards the light or the dark depending on what the dragon does. So the Wheel of Time, we are following this age's Dragon Reborn and a group of Tarvaren, who are people who are able to influence the weave of the world, which is like the pattern of the age and like the pattern of events that make up the age, as we assumedly vanquish evil for good. I feel like that is the end goal, especially with this like classic light dark struggle. But Matt is one of our Tarvaren. All of the main characters come from the same place, and they're all very stubborn, and I feel like they all have a very notable character flaw. And for me, Matt's is that he cannot accept any responsibility for his own actions, and he will blame everything bad that ever happens to him on everyone else, never himself. It's never anything to do with him. Throughout this book, he got a lot more page time and his own perspective, which wasn't super prominent in the first 2 books. And I went from being annoyed because of that character flaw, with it being his monologue, like just hearing him complain about how all the bad things that have happened to him are everything to do with everyone else. I went from being annoyed to really liking him and appreciating him by the end. I feel like he's become almost a reluctant hero. I feel like he's not the kind of person who would ever approach your friend and be like, hey, just so you know, I really care about you. But he would actually complain about you, but when it comes down to it, I feel like he has your back, and I feel like that is why he's grown on me throughout this. I wouldn't say he's like one of my favorite characters of all time at this point, but he's definitely a very notable one based on just how throughout the course of this one book I went from disliking him and being irritated by him to actually really enjoying his perspective. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. For this one, we're going with another one of my favorites of the year, which is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which obviously, I mean, if a book makes me cry, it generally does make it to my best books, because I really value books that impact me emotionally above anything else. But this one is a literary fiction about 2 people who became friends when they were around 12 years old, and they bonded over their love of video games. And later on in life, when they're in college, it's like the mid-90s, they reconnect and they start to make video games together. It's hard to say what this book is about, you know, because it doesn't actually really have a plot. It just follows them over 2 decades as they work together, but also like their friendship, which they're not actually the most likable people. They actually annoyed me more than anything, but I feel like there's such a set of strong side characters in here as well that I really felt like I got to know these people, and they were more human for their flaws as well. One of them is kind of like self-centered and has a lot of main character energy, while the other one can be kind of cold and blunt and hurt the people around him without even really noticing. Something about this book was just so raw and had me like invested in it without me ever truly knowing that I was invested. And I didn't sob. I expected to sob. I didn't quite, but I shed a few tears, and I am actually interested in reading a little bit more from Gabrielle Zevin. If you could recommend anything, let me know, because this book for me was like, it felt like a Ready Player One prequel written in the style of One Day by David Nichols, and they're 2 of my favorite books. So I don't know whether it's just that this book was the perfect combination of things that I love, or whether I actually would enjoy reading more from Gabrielle Zevin. So let me know what you think down in the comments. 11 is a book that made you happy, and I mean, that's hard because I don't read to make myself happy, you know. I actually, aside from Ali Hazelwood books, haven't read a lot of like kind of cutesy fluffy feel-good books this year. So we're going with Dick Fight Island Volume 1. I know it's an odd choice, but this was just so bizarre that I just went with it, and I had a great time. You know what I'm like with books that are fun as well. Like if a book is labeled as fun, I generally don't enjoy it as much, because like I'm just not in a book for a good time. Like I said, I value books that impact me emotionally above anything else. So if a book is just kind of like fun. It generally doesn't appeal to me, but this one was a birthday gift from Ash, so thank you very much, Ash, and it was just out of the blue. I know why she sent it me. It's because it's called Dick Fight Island, so I had to read it. This one is about a group of islands, and every 4 years somebody is nominated from all of the islands to compete in this tournament, and whoever wins the tournament becomes the king of the islands, and the rules of the tournament is whoever comes first loses. Yes, you heard me correctly. And it is not romantic, inherently romantic. There are instances where it is romantic. They don't see it as romantic. It's you just have to read it, guys. It's very explicit, as you can imagine, but it was just so bizarre that I just had to keep reading to find out what happened next. It has its flaws. I think it has really good world building, but I do think it has a few too many characters considering like the size of this, and also like I didn't expect the entire tournament to happen in this one installment, which it does. So I do feel like the pacing was a little bit too fast, especially with how much world building is in here and how many characters. It was kind of over before I really got to grips with anything, but it was definitely like a really good time. Question number 12 is, what is the most beautiful book that you've received this year? I mean, I get a lot of special editions, so it's really a hard question, but I have two. One of them is a Locked Library book. Locked Library is Harper Voyager, or HarperCollins fantasy subscription box. It's pretty new, and honestly I've been very impressed with their books so far. I feel like, even though I haven't read any of them yet, that the book picks are solid and the editions are gorgeous. The Locked Library one is Mark Lawrence's The Book That Wouldn't Burn. It has just like the green and the orange. Look at that edge. It's gorgeous. And then the Locked Library books as well all have matching spines, so all of the keys on the spines will match, which I think is just a really nice touch. And then the second one is one of FairyLoot's adult picks, which is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi. This one I'm actually desperate to read because I believe it's a gothic story, but it has a jewel toned cover with gold foiling and that gorgeous edge. It's the jewel toning for me. I think actually with both of these it is the color palette that appeals to me the most, which has made me choose them for this prompt, but they also have some really beautiful like additional touches as well. And then the final question, question number 13, is what books you need to read by the end of the year. And so many. Here is like a handful that I feel like I need to read by the end of the year. I will link my 2023 TBR for you guys to check out though, because I have not finished that yet. I mean, it's only halfway through the year, but I have made a decent dent. I'm actually really happy with the dent that I've made. One that I didn't pull because it's in a big stack on my bookshelf and I just hate disturbing it is The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson, which is the last Mistborn Era 2 book I need to read before I go back in and reread Stormlight, which I'm really excited about. You guys know that I haven't really enjoyed Mistborn Era 2, so I'm eager to have it over with. We also have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm actually, as I've been filming this, I'm in the queue for the pre-sale of the FairyLoot edition, which is, it was when I joined, it was like 2.5 hours because I forgot about the pre-sale, and it's fine. So I have the US copy. I won't be mad if I don't get it. But everyone and their mother loves this, so I feel like I need to give it a try. And the final one is, I feel like I need to read something by Carissa Broadbent because like with Fourth Wing, everyone and their mother loves her. So the one that I own, the only one that I own right now, is The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is the first book in the Crowns of Nyaxia, which I think is about vampires. But I would also like to read Daughter of No Worlds as well, so I don't actually have a preference which one, but I would like to read a Carissa Broadbent book before the end of the year. So that was this year's mid-year book freakout tag. Thank you guys for another year on BookTube. The last year has been a blast. I'm sure that the next year will be as well. I honestly can't believe that I've been here for 6 years. 6 years. Like, damn, that is a long time. This is the longest amount of time I've ever done anything, I think. So I feel like I'm in it for the long haul. I mean, I already have been, but I don't feel like I'm going anywhere anytime soon. Down in the comments, please let me know the book that made you happy this year. Let's see if I can get any inspiration and have some joy in my life for once instead of just pain. But aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head to my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Etsy for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're a go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.